Hi, my name is Jennifer. I'm a first generation Dominican-American woman born and raised in Washington Heights. I'd like to share with you all what I've learned about the kingdom of God in Jesus Christ. As I have misunderstood God, I wonder who else might be doing so as I have, which as a consequence have matured me in the spiritual with errors and covered my worship with obscurity. I have found that there is a common denominator in humankind that ends with them and begins with God. Here are my attempts at illustrating this from what I've come to understand about the two aspects of our hearts. Starting with spiritual error, it is difficult to figure out on our own because desires overwhelm messages that are carried through to us from the actions of others and overwhelm the symbols that come from our environment, which we are all supposed to learn to read. Even as we are separated from each other's existence and bound to our carnal body, in each of our hearts there is a capacity to sense profoundly and in complex images. The heart can sense itself as a vessel, which is meant to be filled by something and someone, and we can know so even when we are feeling lonely. As we live from within the realms of desires and emotions, I believe it is unlikely to relieve error from our natural prejudice and biases just because we had taken someone's advice. Life brings for us inborn challenges that are there to break the heart, so to peel from our eyes our world and behold it in stark view. This first aspect of our heart cannot be filled with by another who feels the same craving we feel. Neither can their heart be filled by ours because two craving hearts cannot feed each other. In just the same, materiality cannot fulfill our hearts in any meaningful way because materiality is non-living and vacant of lessons and truth. The common denominator I've found is toward communion in general. The second aspect of our hearts is meant to commune with other people, as well as with higher, abstract, and external forces, as it happens with art, social causes, and unfortunately, we're also meant to commune with deception. The heart expresses profound appetites from its many floors and caverns. When our heart breaks, it could grow in fortitude, just as it can break and turn antagonistic towards the people and cultural symbols that comprise the many dealings of this world. I've learned that error stems from our heart's desires, which blinds us from inquiring about the other out there and the deity, the idol out there. It can blind us from the messages that's conveyed from the actions of others and symbols of our environments. It can blind us from understanding that deception and keeping ignorance can be perpetrated by people, societies, and spiritual forces. The desires of our hearts can be blurred with infantile memories of want and satisfaction that were unable of being articulated as babies. Now as adults, it is a duty to exercise our sovereignty, health, intelligence, and thoughtfulness with soberness of mind and virtue of character in order to articulate ourselves and offer lucidity to the objective world and for each other. Otherwise, for fulfillment's sake, we might offer up our hearts as one brings out wine glass unto a stranger, which can be in the form of a person or an intelligence. Otherwise, for fulfillment's sake, we might act in stealth to gratify the desires of our hearts and become isolated, while insulting the say and will of our nearest and dearest. I invite you all to reflect over the desires of your hearts and what it ought to be filled with as a vessel, and by whom. To sum up this part of my message into points, first point is that the heart eats, just as the gut eats. They can be confused for one another, except the heart is nourished with lessons and truth. Second point, spirituality is meant to dwell in our hearts. Deities aim to have our full hearts, so pay close attention to what it is that you're worshiping and what concept and personality you're seeking to commune with. Third point, I believe God made our hearts to be able to contain God, who is the everlasting goodness, everlasting love and long suffering, everlasting justice, wisdom, and mercy, and everlasting source of all things living, pure, and true. The teachings of Jesus Christ has completed my understanding about the heart of this matter, in particular the passage in Matthew chapter 5, verse 27 through 30, which reads, "You have heard that it was said in them of old time, Thou shalt not commit adultery. But I say unto you, that whosoever looks on a woman to lust after her has committed adultery with her already in his heart. And if thy right eye offend thee, pluck it out and cast it from thee, for it is profitable for thee that one of thy members should perish, and not that thy whole body should be cast into hell. And if thy right hand offend thee, cut it off and cast it from thee, for it is profitable for thee that one of thy members should perish, and not that thy whole body should be cast into hell." If you've caused offense in your heart before ever having acted on it, are you going to dismember your body to show yourself worthy of not being cast into hell? Yet, what can stop your heart from causing offense once more again? Christ's message is not for the righteous to do anything meaningful with. It's for the man and woman who have conceded that the heart is too great to know, to measure, and to control.